Forest Hills Central in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. Coach, thanks for coming back on the podcast and talking to our coaches about how we can practice like we lost and other things to make us a better coach.
Yeah, I hope so. Just fired up to talk hoops with you again and listen to all your stuff. And I just appreciate the opportunity, Coach.
Well, it's good to have you on here. And as we were talking before, you wear many hats, right? Husband, father, right? You're doing some training. You're a speaker and clinician. You've also written some books, and you have a chapter in one of your books talking about the practice like we lost mentality. So before I even dug into it, I'm like, all right, I'm intrigued already just based on the title chapter. What comes to mind? And again, to our listeners, Coach George, man, coaching basically his whole life, right? Former college athlete at Albion, correct, Coach?
Yep.
Right? And then, got into coaching very quickly right after that. So a lot of experience coming in with his message today. What comes to mind when you hear, practice like we lost?
Yeah, I think first about just how emotional the game of basketball is. It is just there's so many X's and O's, there's so many talent, all those other kinds of things. But and I would say a lot of sports for sure, but I just feel like basketball is such an emotional sport that the coach's approach, the player's approach, the togetherness or the lack of togetherness, all the things that make up that emotional approach of the players going into the game might have even more to do with winning and losing than some of the X's and O's and all the other things that go on. And I think the management of the emotional state of a team is just so critical. And you know that, and coaches know that. That's no mystery. But I think so often we get so X's and O'd out. We got to run this set. And I do too, without a doubt. But then you maybe forget about how are your players feeling at that time? What do they need from you at that time? What does your whole program need from you at that time? And really, what do you need from your assistants? So, so often in all sports, I think teams coming off a loss seem to have an edge, seem to be more focused, seem to be more hungry or whatever. And that, I think that's really what comes to mind. Like, wait a minute, really? Like, so coming off a loss, you've adjusted things, or you're more focused. And I guess in my brain, I thought, my last several years of coaching, we need to be that way. I don't care if we lost or won or what, but we need to have that edge. So that's really, I think, what comes to mind first is just managing the emotional aspect of your team and how are they feeling and what do they need.
So I'm going to read off a couple of things that you wrote in the book, and I just want you to take a deeper, dive into it. So this is the practice like we lost mentality on display. However, it's the type of approach your team needs to take after victories too. It is your job as the coach to avoid the complacency and satisfaction that comes after a win. And you say a few more sentences, and then you finish the paragraph with, the best coaches are consistent in their approach. Individual wins and losses do little to change the big picture. The best coaches know this. Can you comment on that and give us, an example in your coaching time?
Yeah, and it's impossible. It is impossible for us to not react to wins and losses and have some satisfaction after wins. My gosh, I think the whole chapter starts, if I remember, Coach, with winning is hard. I think that might be what I wrote right at the start is winning is hard. I mean, it's hard. And as much as we put into it, as much as we, everything we do to try to get those wins, it's that you have to enjoy it and you have to feel some satisfaction when you get a win. I really feel like so often with me, when we got a win, it was relief, which is the worst. Like my last 3 to 4 years, I was like, I am done with relief like that. Like I bust my butt so hard, and so do my players, and so do my coaches, and shoot, so does my wife, to try to have the, and then you win, and all you feel is like, who do we play next? And I've got better at that in the last 4 to 5 years of feeling like no, like enjoy the win for at least the night. My God, go to bed happy. And then and then the next day, understanding that naturally 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 55-year-olds, you're going to feel less edgy, a little bit less, what do we got to do to win the next game? A little bit less, all of those things, because you won. It is an absolute natural reaction. And I mean, shoot, I've won some games, but I've lost hundreds as well. And you know how you feel when you go to bed, and when you wake up, that you're just edgy, and you're just, what are we gonna do? No, and I really started to challenge myself late in my coaching career that the win or the loss, the next day at practice, I need to be who I am, and I need to be every day, consistent with my approach with my team, their emotional situation, my emotional situation. And yeah, I could keep going. I kind of want to ask another question, but like, it makes me think about the number of times that, so as a teacher in high school right now, I interact with a ton of high school athletes, and the number of times I have athletes in class that come in and they say, over the years, that have said, "Oh, rough loss last night. Oh, today's practice is going to be terrible. We're going to run so much." And I like that. I don't get that. Like, I struggle with that, because it makes it sound like, well, we weren't practicing very hard before. We were doing pretty well before, but we lost. Oh gosh, now we're gonna really pick it up, and what are you waiting on? If it takes that loss to make you have that approach.
Man, you're preaching to the choir on this one. I think one of my biggest regrets as a basketball player was not enjoying it more, the experience, because of what you talked about. You get all these wins, you have all these great moments, but you win the game and you're just like, next, next, ready for the next game, instead of taking the time to, just cherish that moment. And that's something, if I could go back in time, I would definitely have enjoyed those experiences more. And thankfully they're still memories. So I'm able to, look back and reflect on them positively now, but I would have done a little more in the moment. And the second thing that you said was, the way that you broke it down, I just say, detach yourself from the outcome, right? Win, loss, can we be detached from that and instead hold ourselves to the standards of Hope College men's basketball, or, Forest Hills Ranger basketball, right? What does that look like? Well, those are the standards that we're going to have regardless of the outcome of the game, and say, how are we going to continue to improve moving forward is a much more successful mentality that we have. And you're right. You started out the chapter with winning is hard. The other team's trying to win too, right? They're trying to kick your butt too, right? And only one team's going to come out on top. It's important for us to keep that in mind. What are some ways that we can go about creating this mentality and get away from some of the examples you just talked about? Oh man, we lost. It's going to be a tough practice today.
Yeah. We, I keep looking back to my last year as a coach here, when we lost our first couple games, then we won 18 in a row, and we were good. And we sometimes I feel like there are secrets between coaches and players, like things coaches that talk about and things players talk about. And that year, partly I think because my kid was a senior, partly because I knew it was my last year, I was really open with the team exactly about how we felt as coaches and what we were doing. And we talked about it constantly. We talked about that. Okay, we've won 5 in a row. Great. Like, is that what we wanted to do, was win 5 in a row? Was that, or no, that's not what we're trying to do. Okay. And I'd have people in the middle of that year. So let's say we win 10 in a row. And then I have people come up, other coaches in the building, or anyone, to be like, hey, probably time for a really good loss, isn't it? Like, you guys need a loss to make sure you're sharp. And I would go to my team and I would say, listen, this is what people are saying right now. We've won 12 in a row, and people are telling me we need to lose so we can like get edgy again. And I was like, we're not doing it. We're just not doing it. So today, and I would put us in the setting. Our second loss of the year was just a brutal loss, and the feeling in the locker room afterwards was unbelievable. All season that year, I would talk about that moment. Do you remember how you felt after that loss? You did, what you felt like. So feel it right now. Put yourself back there. Feel it. Okay. We stop. Feel it. Okay. Let's not go there. And we're not gonna have a bad game to try to be able to get back together and say, oh yeah, we know we really stopped guarding the ball hard and we really stopped moving the ball. But that reminds me, now we'll focus on that. So, the whole idea of a good loss, I just don't buy it. I mean, I really don't buy it. And we talked outwardly about it with the team that today we're going to practice like we lost, pretend we lost yesterday, like really seriously. What if we lost yesterday? How would today be? And the guys would be like, oh, we would be so. I said, well, then we are. Let's go. And we won 18 in a row. And I think part of it, because we're really good, part of it also just the idea that we didn't need a loss somewhere in there to refocus us.
And to go to your point, there's times where you're going to win a game and you probably finish it and feel like you should have lost.
Yeah.
And there's times where you're like, you know what, we played really, really well and we still lost this game. So again, being able to detach from that outcome, and but you're going back to like, this is Ranger basketball. This is how we play. Win, lose, 18 straight wins, or we got our first win after a couple of really tough losses in the beginning of the season, is a great mentality for us to be able to have. Because I'm sure there were some games out of that 18-game winning streak where you're like, we didn't really play that well.
Yeah.
We're just better than the competition, so we won. We won anyway. So that's huge to have as well. At the end of your chapter, you talked about avoiding the dramatic ups and downs of a mood, wins, loss, and let's be honest, everybody has things going on. Before we hit record, we were talking about everybody's busy. Busy may look different to each individual person, but we're all busy. How have you found, balancing teaching, coaching, training, husband, father, all these different things, and then when you go to practice, those same things are going on with your players. They got a ton of different things and relationship dynamics. How are you able to balance like this togetherness, this ability to get players to focus and continue to play hard, on top of the fact that, hey, it's a long basketball season and we may have a big game coming up. We may have just come back from a tough loss, all the other things that go into play.
Yeah. I think right now at Hope, Coach Mitchell is incredible. And our staff is really incredible right now. So, I'll teach all day here, and I got about a 45-minute drive to practice every day once we get started. And I like that drive, first of all, a little time to okay, how'd teaching go? What poetry do we cover today? What essays do I have to grade? Okay, now I get to the place. But I'm so fired up to see that staff and those guys when I walk into that building. And I really think a lot of it is the camaraderie of the coaches. It's just a really great staff who has a lot of the same goals and where we're headed. And I would say the relationships that have been built from coach to coach and coach to player and player to player, there's a culture there right now that you can't help it. Like you walk in and you can't help but be excited to be there and want to, and you just, you kind of get in, what's the flow? I've read a book on that. Like you get into your flow and walk in and it's just 2 hours of just being with my friends. Those coaches are great people, and I think it's a great outlet for me, to stop thinking about the essays and all those other things. And then you're right, every player out there, he's got an essay due tomorrow, he's got a presentation next week, he's having girlfriend problems, there is stuff. But I think the coaches at Hope do a really great job of being consistent and making every day an exciting practice, a disciplined practice, active practice, where then all of a sudden it's over and guys have been in that flow for that whole time.
That's great stuff. The second step that you talked about in this chapter was that combination of being able to celebrate the wins, which we talked about already, but still coming back to practice the next day with that aggressive, intense approach that, as we've talked about, many coaches may apply to only coming after a specific loss. There's some balance there, right? We've touched on a little bit. How are you able to communicate that with your team as far as being able to enjoy those wins and still getting after every single practice?
Yeah, really tried to be human, and really tried to laugh in practice and really tried to, be ourselves as a staff in practice. I think that's really important. I also would say, I think that we leveled off the whole year. And I think Coach Mitch does a great job with this at Hope, and so does the staff. We really leveled off the whole year of every practice is a really important practice. and every game is a really important game. I think sometimes coaches and players more get caught up in the big game and the other game. Oh, we got this in a couple games, we got the big rivalry, and then we're going on the road to da 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 da. And as a staff, we built up, and I made it a real point with when I was the high school coach here, to build up those other games, because the guys would be naturally fired up for the huge home Friday night against our rival. Like, they didn't need me to get them jacked up for that game. But if we have a Tuesday night on the road, we're gonna have 6 fans there playing a team that's not as good as us, in the middle of the week and longer, all of those kinds of things. We would build those up so much that they felt like the big game through what, as coaches, you use whatever you can freaking use to make it important. But we started calling them Ranger Ball road trips. Right now at Hope, those road trips where we take, long drives to whatever game, we build those up as just as important, just like every practice is just as important. Doesn't matter if you lost or won or who you're playing, just a real consistent approach, regardless of how you're feeling.
So you remind me of, so I coached 1 year 8th grade basketball, and we had a really good team. One kid went on to play basketball at Central Michigan. We had a good group of 8th graders. They continued to be really good when they went up to high school. So I was spoiled with my 1 year at 8th grade coaching basketball. And we just beat a team that was really good. And the next game we're playing one of the worst teams in our league. And I can see the guys in the layup line are a little too loose than I would like, right? And so I stop to warm up and I bring them over to the bench, and I look at them and I'm like, guys, you realize they're laughing at you right now? I'm watching while you guys are warming up. They're going through the layup lines. When they come back, they're pointing at you. They're snickering to each other. They're making fun of you. They don't think you guys are going to win. They don't think you can beat them, right? And then just to watch, like, everybody's eyes literally change. That, it's like the eye of the tiger, right? All of a sudden they went from like loose freewheeling to, oh, I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And then we just, like, from the jump, it was like, boom, these guys were locked in. Just little things
Whatever
like
you
that
can do.
when it's like home game, we're playing the worst team in the league. Oh, okay. You just got to use whatever tricks you have at your disposal to make things work. I'm sure you've done some of that.
Yes, indeed we do.
What are some of the words that you would recommend not to use for coaches when it comes to, hey, that next practice, some of the things that maybe you've said or I've said, you've heard said after coaches will lose and have a rough loss?
Yeah. So that's a tough question. I just think I don't know if it's specific words as it is just the approach, I mean, we've been on teams. I'm sure you've been on teams, Coach, when you're in the gym and here the coach walks in, practice is starting, and you look at him and you're like, oh crap, coach had a bad day. Coach had a bad something. And that coach is just different from the start, and just, and we can't all be perfect. And by no means am I saying as 100% consistent day to day, whatever. But I think it really is just that overall approach, Coach, that it's that you are who you are, that you understand emotionally where your team is, and that that you're consistent day to day with your expectations, what you allow, what you don't allow, and that you're human with them. That you're human and understand that they might be feeling a little bit better because they just got a big win and you might have to rip into them a little bit, or that they're feeling pretty rough because they just had a loss and you might have to build them up a little bit. But I just think it's that understanding of the emotional situation for that team at that time.
No, I think that's definitely where it starts and where it's key. And I wanted to share a few of the words that you put. You recommend coaches avoid saying, we have to practice harder now.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's going to be an extra tough practice. Bring your running shoes tomorrow, right? I think I've heard a similar one to that, a time here or there. Those are some things that, maybe there's a better way to go about it. That's for sure.
It makes me laugh thinking about stuff like that, because we've all been there and we've all been on both sides of that.
Both sides of it, right?
Yeah, no basketballs tomorrow. Like, oh, okay, that's gonna be sweet.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun track practice.
That should be a good one.
Coach, talk a little bit about this was great. I think we could talk about that subject and take a deep dive into it. But I want to touch on one more message that you brought up to me as we were emailing back and forth, and just being a part of history, being a part of the culture at a program, and what that can mean to an individual or a team as a whole. What comes to mind, and how have you been able to incorporate that message with different teams that you've had?
Yeah, so that's mentality number 2 in my book. And you know, I keep looking at both of the coaching situations I've had right now at Hope, and then my career here for 25 years at Forest Hill Central. And I think the history, you know, when I took over Forest Hill Central, there wasn't, I couldn't even find old stats really. Like, I mean, there had been some good players and, you know, some whatever, but just there wasn't a real consistent hold on what had happened from 1970 to 1990. There were a couple banners in the gym for a couple districts, but who were the great players? What were the records? All those kinds of things. And so really from day one, when I took over, it was a little bit funny the first few years, but I would hold an alumni game right away. And I know a ton of coaches do that. And I started a record book right away. And that record book for a couple of years is, you know, like most steals in a game. Hey, 3 by Johnny. Nice work, Johnny. But you know, after 7 to 10 years, there's records that are actual records or whatever. So, so I, you know, once we got going a little bit, or once I got going here and knew I would be here for a long time, there are so many parts of that, coach, that I just kept talking about the history of the program. And then the last 10 years, after we had about a 10-year run where we just were really, really good and had great players for a long time, it was really easy to talk about, you know, the people before me. And I named drills after former players, and we had awards at the banquet named after former players. And the record book was passed out at every banquet, and it was sitting on every table, and everyone could leaf through it. And there was such a feeling of what came before and our responsibility to what came before. And yeah, it was really important. And certainly at Hope, I mean, my gosh, you know, I mean, there's a history there that is phenomenal. And Coach Mitch does an incredible job. He brought in what he called in the Redwoods, and I know you've been in, and bringing the pillars of the program to talk to current guys. And I think coaches are really missing the boat if you don't talk about the past and some responsibility to the past. And I would even say some challenges to be better than the past, to break some records. And we talked about that. You know, a lot of times preseason, we would make a little list of 8 to 10 records that we're like, hey, let's get this least points allowed in a season average. Like we can do that. What is it? Oh, that's 12 years ago. It was whatever number, and we can break that. So a lot of little parts to it. You know, the banquet and the drills and the awards and the record book and all of that, the alumni game, but certainly right now at Hope, there is a real awareness of what came before us. And certainly the last 10 to 15 years of my coaching here at high school, there was a lot of talk about what came before us and what we owe. And, you know, I talked about in the book one time here, and certainly at Hope it happens. One time here, I put signs up in the locker room before one of our not big games of all the people that still come to games, all the parents and all that, and people that we just knew were pillars of Ranger ball and that kept coming back. And the guys, they went out for warm-ups, and I had someone put them up while they were gone. They went back to the locker room, and all of a sudden there's 100 signs on the wall with names of all the people from the past that still come because of their love for Ranger ball. And that was a great pregame. The guys were like, wow, like there's a lot here and a lot that we owe to the people that come to watch us play.
You know, just a great message. I mean, I think that as coaches, you want to, you know, be mindful of the history, your players mindful of the history, and try to make your own. And that's a great way to do it. And how you've been able to keep players involved over past years. You mentioned Coach Mitch continuing to do that. You know, I go back and get the chance to chop it up with, you know, at the elite camp and chat with some of the current players who are coaching. That's always an awesome time. And you know, to be able to continue to do that, I think is a huge part of continuing a culture, and not just to have an individual team, and that's the team. And then their next year, there's an individual team, and that's the team. There's a togetherness and a community factor that's built. So many good nuggets that you rattled off right here. The naming after the drill. I need to start doing that, especially with I got a million drills and I'm terrible at naming them, right? Some drills I'll get from somebody else.
Yeah.
Some drills I'll
Yeah.
tweak, or some I'll make up myself. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't know. This is the line race drill. Like, I don't have, like, I'm just going to start naming them after, different players that we've trained.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Talk about when it comes to building like history and culture, what are some of the roles that your assistant coaches have played in, teaching that to your current players? Is that like your varsity staff? Is that all the way through the youth program? How have you done that? I guess I'm speaking more to your time with the Rangers, Forest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a thing that all of our coaches know. And we had so many coaches, that were former players, which is
I love that.
phenomenal. When you have a JV coach and a freshman coach
Yeah.
who were part of the program. And, a lot of times I feel like the freshman coach at a high school is in so many ways, maybe the most vital coach in the whole program. And that experience is sometimes the most vital experience to teach the culture and to teach, and certainly you do some things at the youth programs, but until they really walk into the high school, you can only do what you can do. And, I had freshman coaches over the years that were former players that from day one would talk about Ranger ball, and that was our term for our program, and would explain what it was built on and the pillars that we were built on, and would wear the gear, and would talk about the times and would point at the records on the wall. And so I really think as a coaching staff, we just made it a thing. It was really, really important. I made it important with the parents as well, talked with the parents a lot. I'd have a kid, and then I've had another kid 4 years later that was from the same family, and those parents would be involved all those years, even when their sons weren't on the team, and they would still come watch games. So it was just one of our pillars, and the coaches talked about it, and we used names from, the first time they walked in the freshman practice, they would run the KC drill, named after Kyle Carhart. It's about taking charges. He teaches right there, right now, by the way. And yeah, I mean, he was an incredible charge taker, and the drill's named after him, and they'd learn that the very first day, and then they'd have him in history class. And it's just something that we just made it a point as a full staff to do that.
Well, tell Coach Carhart I said hello, because I had a good time playing with him for the Holland Blast back in the day. Little time in West Michigan playing with him. That was
he could hoop a little bit. He could hoop.
Yes, he could. Yes, he could. He was a great teammate too.
Yeah.
So coaches, there's a couple of things I want to touch on. We're going off of 2 chapters in Coach George's book. So he's been kind enough to send me some of those books. We're going to give 2 free ones away. So all you have to do, if you listen to this podcast, shoot me an email, send me a message on Twitter, contact@currentbasketball.com. First 2 people to send me a message, I'll send you Coach George's book for free. Now, Coach George does a tremendous job teaching the game. He's organizing some of the best clinics that I've had the chance to attend or speak at, and he's expanded this year. So, Coach, you host Hoop Smart Coaches Academy. You've expanded locations. You have one in Grand Rapids. You have one in Charlevoix. And there's a strong connection of Coach's Edge members as well. Like, cause I'm like, this is pretty cool. I mean, Coach Troshak, who's hosting and speaking in Charlevoix, Coach Campbell, who's speaking on defense, heck of a defensive coach. Coach, you have Coach Donovan from Frankenmuth, Coach's Edge member, Coach Mitchell, Coach's Edge member, Coach Riley. I don't know if he's speaking this year. I know he's done some. He's Coach's Edge. I mean, there's like at least 5 different coaches that kind of you're connected to and I'm connected to with the different things, really complementing each other. And so I wanted to give you a chance, and I'm speaking this year at one of your clinics as well. Talk about what you have going on, the dates, and just how exciting that is to expand, I'm sure.
Yeah, huge thanks to you and to the Coach's Edge listeners and all the people that are associated with you, because it is a big part of the clinic. You have been, and your people have been. And I mean, I think it's an incredible list of speakers. If you go to kengeorgebasketball.com, we have 2 clinics. And if you look at the list of speakers and you look at what they're talking about, I don't know how you couldn't go. And it's I just think it's an incredible opportunity for coaches to go and get their brain wrapped around their season, listen to some real veteran coaches. So the dates are Sunday, October 15th. That's in Charlevoix. We have Olivet College, University of Olivet, Coach Hargraves bringing his team up to demonstrate all day. Coach Niall Finney from Kirtland Community College is bringing his team up there. Coach Headinga is coming down to talk from Lake State, and just, Coach Troshak and you. I mean, it's an incredible lineup. Sunday, October 15th at Charlevoix High School. 2 gyms going at the same time, 2 speakers going at the same time, college teams demonstrating. Should be an awesome clinic, breakdown classroom sessions after lunch. And then the Grand Rapids one again, I think it's year 5, maybe year 6. I lose track because of COVID. At Northview High School on Sunday, October 29th. We have the Hope College men and the Calvin College women as the 2 demonstrating teams. Coach Mitchell, Coach Christner will be there because of that. Jared Wallace from Grand Valley. Coach Taylor from Grand Rapids Christian. I mean, just an incredible list of, I could name them all, but I won't. But we have an official coming in to talk about dealing with officials, which is always fun to watch coaches listen to that and ask questions about that. So I don't know, Coach. I'm biased. I think that they are just really useful clinics, and hopefully there's one within an hour of where your people live. We have one up in Charlevoix now and one in Grand Rapids. So would love to have people sign up and come. We've had about 300 people in Grand Rapids for 5 straight years, and I'm hoping we can duplicate that in Charlevoix.
Yeah. So I mean, and to a little added detail, so 2 gyms going at the same time. So you look at the roster and the speakers, maybe one coach is talking about running a 1-3-1 zone defense, and a coach in another gym is presenting at the same time on their 5 favorite drills, right? Well, if you don't run a 1-3-1 defense, you just go to the other gym and you check out the 5 favorite shooting drills. And so you're really able to pick and choose which session to attend. And then, as you mentioned, there's a ton of coaches doing a breakdown classroom session as well after lunch. And so what are a couple of the topics that you're excited to hear about, whether that's the one in Northern Michigan and Charlevoix or the one in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, well, I love listening to you, first of all. So having
you got to say that you're on the pod.
Yeah,
I'm really that one doesn't count.
Yeah, I'm really fired up about the Charlevoix one, just because there are some coaches that I don't know that well. That have, all the coaches that have volunteered to do it, it's phenomenal. We have Grand Rapids coaches driving up to Charlevoix. Coach Dennis from Otsego, who is just really, really good, is going to talk specifically about his force baseline pressure defense. I love that. Coach Troshak, I think one of the things that's great about the clinic is we choose topics to try to give you a wide variety, like you just said, something in one gym you don't want to hear. And we've all sat through 1.5 hour presentations of stuff that we would never do, right, because there's no other option. So there's always an option. But Coach Troshak going to talk about attacking zones. And I think that's something that, that's not a typical clinic topic where everything is all about man-to-man stuff and drills or whatever, but how do you attack a zone? So I'm really looking forward to that. Coach Flynn has a really, really unique topic up there from Harbor Springs. The FIBA 3-on-3 rules, concepts, and philosophies, and how to use them in 5-on-5. And I'm there. I'm going to watch that and check that out. So, and then Coach Mitchell's coming up there as well. And so just some really well-known coaches up in that, in Northern Michigan, they're going to present some great stuff. So I'll be wandering from gym to gym. I'll do an early bird session, then I'll shut up and just walk around and watch and learn. So I'm excited. Yeah,
I'm super excited for it. Coach Troshak is like 3 hours of content on that subject on our website, Coach's Edge. And so his presentation, I can promise you, is going to be amazing. His only problem is how does he pick like the 3 hours of the course he put together on our website and put it into 25 minutes? Because I'm telling you, Coach, like it is fantastic, the stuff he has on attacking a 2-3 zone. And I'm also definitely going to attend the FIBA 3-on-3. A friend of mine is one of the top. He's called a master instructor with FIBA 3-on-3. So he's a consultant. He'll go to like Uruguay and train their Olympic team on 3-on-3 better. And they're like, scout, okay, when you play Lithuania, here's the things that they do. So he travels around the world and teaches FIBA 3-on-3. We incorporate it with our camps, a lot of our camps, some of the rules with FIBA. And so I'm very interested to hear Coach Flynn and see, how he starts to translate that into 5-on-5. Every coach, I don't know who's speaking at the same time. I'm glad I'm not, because I'm giving him a lot of gas on this. I'm sure the other one is fantastic too. But just that's one that's going to be like a big time episode and great as well. So, Coach, this was fantastic. Last plug. Tell us where we can find you, where we can register about the clinic if we can get a chance to attend.
KenGeorgeBasketball.com. I think it's pretty easy once you get there. You click, they're both on there. The flyers are on there, and you can register and pay right there. They're group prices. Bring your whole staff. So yeah, KenGeorgeBasketball.com, and then it'll be right there for you.
Yeah. And if any of our Coach's Edge members are listening, I'm heading up. Some of our other Coach's Edge members are heading up. Might even the night prior and hang out that night prior. So if that's one of you guys, feel free to hit me up and we can coordinate some additional kind of fun bonding time as well. So Coach George, thanks a lot. I'll put this up on Twitter. So our Coach's Edge members, they can also, and any of our followers, they can find the link and access how to register that as well. Thanks for listening. Coach George, appreciate you. Get after it today.
All right. See you guys.